And I'm like, Mama, are you fucking with me? I knew things were serious because of the cat. I was visiting my mother for the weekend like I normally did, and I'm unpacking my stuff in my room, and she says, look, he's outside. Who is outside, Mom? The neighbor, he's outside, he's watching me. So I go to the window, and I'm expecting to see a 70-year-old black man, and I see a cat. A black cat, but a cat. Mama, there's a cat outside. No, it's the neighbor. I've been telling you, like, he's been doing this witchcraft and transforming into a cat. So I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and I'm like, Mama, are you fucking with me? She says, no, I told you, he's been doing this stuff. And then she just walks off like nothing has happened. Now, under any other circumstance, this would be hilarious because my mother was always this big personality. She always had these awesome jokes, these one-liners, these really great observations, and she would deliver them with great comedic timing. And my friends and I would just laugh and laugh and laugh. But 5 years before this point, my father had passed away suddenly. And right after he died, all of her observations and her one-liners and all of those things all revolved around the neighbor, and they were just rooted in this paranoia. So I started to get concerned. And I said, I'm just gonna watch her behavior and see what's going on. So over the course of the next few months, I did notice changes. I would call home and the phone would be disconnected. So she'd call me a couple days later and say, oh, I'm sorry, the neighbor has gotten into the phone. I'm like, how did he get into the phone? Okay, fine, whatever. I would go home to visit her, I would try my key and it wouldn't work. And she'd say, oh, the neighbor, he's coming into the house. I'm like, he's coming into the house? Are you sure? Yeah, okay. I finally get into the house, and I see that she has this state-of-the-art alarm system because she says, since the neighbor is now a cat, she needs to be able to monitor him as he is walking around the property. It's a very small property, but she wants to see everything. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting concerned. So I reach out to my aunt, and my mom, she's Nigerian, so this whole side of the family is Nigerian, and I say, Auntie, I'm concerned about Mom, because she's got this cat thing and the witchcraft and all this stuff is going on. And my aunt said, Jenny, you're American born. You don't understand these things. That man is doing work on her. And I'm like, I don't think that that's what's happening though. I don't think that he's transforming into a cat. He's just a regular old black man living his life. All right, cool. So she said, you know what, we got it. We're gonna pray. And pray they did. As expected, nothing changed. It just got worse. Worse and worse. So I reached out to my friend who's a therapist, and I said, when should I be really, really concerned? When do I need to start thinking about doctors and medicine and things of that nature? And my friend said, look, every person has some level of paranoia. Until it starts to interfere with her day-to-day and her hygiene and her work, you don't have to be too concerned. And that was exactly what I needed to hear, because that meant I didn't really have to do anything, because she was completely normal aside from this little cat thing. So I pressed on. A couple months later, November, I get a call from the police, and they say, hi, are you Jennifer? Yes. Your mother is here. She's fine, but yeah, is she under the care of a doctor, like a psychiatrist or a psychologist or something? And I said, no. They said, well, maybe you should think about that because, she calls a lot about the neighbor. She's kept us up to date on him. And she started coming here a lot to tell us more about the neighbor. So maybe you should think about that. Oh. So now this is external and other people are seeing all of this. So that weekend, I go to visit her and I call her up on the Saturday and I said, what time works for you, for me to take the train so you can come pick me up? And she said, oh, anytime. I took off from work for a couple days because I needed to rest. As I mentioned, she's Nigerian. Nigerians do not rest. So I was suspicious of this. So I get home and I see her, and she has lost some weight. The skin in her neck is hanging, her eyes are really sunken, and she just looks really terrified. And I'm like, oh, okay, something is really happening. So that night, we're getting ready for bed. She takes a chair, and she puts the chair up against the door, and she says, well, no, I need to do this because the neighbor, he comes in. And then she goes into the kitchen and she grabs a big knife and she goes off into her room and locks the door. These are not normal things, the knife or the locking of the door. So I'm like, okay. I need to figure out what else is happening here too. So I start going through all of her shit. So I go through all of her papers, I go through her purse, and I see that there's a letter from her job, and it says that she has been suspended indefinitely following an investigation into the incident. So I spent the next week trying to figure out what this incident is, and I learned that my mother was at work, and she looked out the window, and she saw a man in a van with a big gun, and she said, "The neighbor has sent that man to kill me." And then she locked herself in the bathroom for 2.5 hours. So now this is affecting work. So I call my aunt again. I said, "Auntie, can y'all come for Thanksgiving? Like maybe if you just like come and you see her, like we can figure out what to do." And she said, "Okay, you know what, we'll come." So Thanksgiving rolls around, and normally this is a joyous time. My mom always loved to entertain, and she was a great cook. After she was a nurse, she used to cook at a rectory, and because she believed in child labor, I also cooked at a rectory. So I was her little assistant, and I'd be helping her out with the meals and all of that stuff, but this Thanksgiving, she was kind of my assistant, but she did not know what to do. And I would give her little tiny tasks to just try to keep her included, but she just had no idea what to do, and she looked just lost in her own home. At the end of dinner, my aunt said, "Why don't we just take her to the Bronx?" And I was like, that sounds like a great idea, because I had never thought about like removing her from this thing that was just troubling her so much. So I said, great. So they took her. She lasted 3 days. On the third day, I got a call from my cousin's wife. She said, "Jenny, come get your mom." I said, "Oh, okay, what's going on?" "Your mom was eating, and she jumped across the table and started to choke Auntie because she said Auntie was a witch." I said, "Oh, okay, I'm coming, but what can we do for her? Like, we need to do something for her." And this woman said, "That is your problem. She is your mom. Come get her out of my house." Click. I hate her, by the way. So I'm driving across the Bronx, and I am terrified because now it's not the neighbor, it's not where she lives, it's her mind. You know, anybody can be a witch. When am I gonna be a witch? So I get her in the car, and I'm driving down the LIE, and I'm praying for traffic because I have no plan. I have absolutely no plan as to what I'm going to do with my mother. So as I'm driving down the street, or driving down the LIE, I see this bright light, and it says Mercy Hospital. And I think to myself, I know that hospital. Mom used to work there, and I was born there. And as I'm thinking this, my mother screams, "Oh my God, I'm having a heart attack." She grabs her chest, and I look at her. She looks at me, and I'm like, "Mom, are you fucking with me?" "No, I'm having a heart attack. You have to take me to the hospital right now." Now, I'm not gonna question this because I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, I just book it to the hospital. I take her there. And as soon as we park, she is out of the car. Now, I told you she had lost some weight, but she was still close to 200 pounds. But that day, she was Usain Bolt. She was sprinting down the hallway. The nurses, the orderlies, nobody could stop her. They were bouncing off of her one by one. The whole time, she is running down the hallway, and she's screaming, "I need to find him. I need to find it. I need to find a priest. I need him to bless me because she did witchcraft on me." And then I see her get farther and farther away. So I'm just standing there watching my mom run. And this nurse comes up to me, puts her hand on my back, and she says, "Sweetie, what's going on?" And I said, "That's my mom, and I can't help her. I don't know what to do for her. I have no idea how to help her." And she said to me, "Look, take her home, call 911, tell them exactly what she did to her sister in like the exact words, and they will take her." I said, "Okay, that sounds like a plan." So I take her home, I call 911, they came, and they took her. And that was her first step into getting treatment for her psychosis. Now, I normally don't believe in divine intervention or things like that, but thinking back, I know that something happened that day. You know, the only person that I would go to for help is my mom, and I couldn't because she was the one that needed me. But somehow that day, she found a way to help me help her. Thank you.